Welcome to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Nedling. You are about to discover impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you, so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Be sure you visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now tune in, get ready, and enjoy the journey of emerging as a leader of exception in the 21st century.
Welcome everyone to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast. I'm your host, Vicki Nedling, coming to you from Roswell, Georgia. The goal of this podcast is to bring topics and guests that will empower you to grow your business and take your business or your life to the next level. Today, my guest is Beth McDaniel, and let me tell you a little bit about Beth. Beth is a co-founder and president of the award-winning paint and coatings company, Reactive Surfaces. That would be important to understand. Reactive Surfaces, where she also serves as legal counsel. She's also a partner in McDaniel and Associates, a law firm specializing in patent and trade secret law, as we can see from behind her, all those patents. Her legal practice is focused on contracts, business administration, innovation, and entrepreneurship. As a serial entrepreneur, she has guided this bleeding edge innovation company operating in the paint and coatings and specialty chemicals industry for the past 15 years. She has served in leadership roles for numerous organizations, including serving as a Pathways to Peace Fellow, a premier social justice organization. Her work in the area of human rights and social justice brings the level of experience and intention to ensure that human rights and personal livelihood. She brings the same education to her family, including 2 children and grandchildren. So today I thought we'd talk about her journey and the abundant opportunities that women have in technology and science. Please join me in welcoming Beth McDaniel. Hello, Beth.
Hi, thanks for having me, Vicki.
Oh, good to have you. Yes. And I do some work with youth, 9 to 17-year-olds, and teaching them leadership skills as well as speaking skills. And whenever I talk to them, and I always kind of ask them in their icebreaker, well, just talk about what you want to be when you grow up. And nobody really rushes to, I'm going to be a, computer scientist. It's, all of this stuff. I'm going to be a doctor. I'm going to be a lawyer. I'm going to be a vet. That's the closest I get to any science.
That's what I thought I was going to be when I was that age, too.
Yeah. My oldest daughter, who's 35 now, her best friend when she was little said she was going to be a neuroscientist. She is. That's the only person I ever knew that when they were this big, knew what they were going to be and pursued it and is doing it. So, very cool. So we always start with an easy question, and that question is, where do you call home? Where do you live?
We live in Austin, Texas.
Ah, very good. I've been to Austin several times. Love it there.
Yeah.
So I guess the first question is, what's it like being this female executive in technology, science, in this space that you don't see a lot of people that look like you and I?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the same as it's been in all the different spaces that I've worked throughout, all these years that I've been working. But but it's better now because I think there's so many more women that are holding these kind of positions. And so I haven't really suffered too much discrimination in this, and especially since I'm in a closely held company, and that's kind of the way I've rolled all these years. But But in tech, I mean, our chief scientist in our labs is a woman. We've always had a lot of women on our staff.
Awesome.
So there's really been no difference. We have as many women working for us as we do men. I noticed years ago in some of the in different parts of my journey that there was definitely I was definitely overlooked at certain, for certain things, underestimated. I find being underestimating like a valuable thing, actually, because when you're underestimated, people aren't watching you so closely, and so you can kind of do the sneak attack, and get something in there when they're not ready for it. And so I definitely used that to my advantage in different periods of my life. I haven't had to so much in my science and technology position, because I was one of the founders of the company. So yeah.
And I could see how, people aren't gunning for you. It's like, oh, I want that job. I was wondering, as you were talking about being the advantages of being in a smaller business, I think a lot of times, not just women, but anyone that's in college is thinking, I have to go after the big company, and might pass a really great opportunity because it's a smaller business. Can you talk a little bit about that? Your thoughts?
Yeah. So big business never appealed to me that much, because I've never been very good at bureaucratic BS. No, I won't say that. I mean, it's necessary when you have that many people working, but if you're not into that, and I was never into really, staying on a strict schedule and wearing certain clothes and pantyhose and all that stuff. And I just didn't think it was necessary, and I didn't think it was right for me. So I felt like closely held business was more suitable for me as a person. But what I've noticed is, like, as a lawyer, for instance, and I did law for quite some time. I did practice law, and I was on the contract side of things. I wasn't a litigator, but I noticed there's a lot of small businesses that are underserved.
Yeah.
For instance, a small business that doesn't want to have a lawyer on full time on their staff. And so there's this opportunity, and I tell people this all the time, because it's interesting that you ask, because I always say, for an accountant or a lawyer or a business consultant, or whatever you do, to go out and serve small companies and be that consultant that wraps up several different clientele into one bundle, and that's a full-time job.
Yeah.
And then you're on your own, and you do it your way, and you charge things your way, and you work when you want, and you can have I think you get a better work-life balance that way. That's for me. Now, then again, the downside of that is, you don't always have an employer paying you. And there's definitely been times when, in my journey, that I wasn't getting paid anything. I wasn't getting a distribution. And then there were times when we hit it big on a deal. And that's another thing, is I really, even as a lawyer or whatever I was doing in business, I always wanted a stake in the action.
Yeah.
I didn't really want to be an hourly worker. And so I was willing to take some risk on. And sometimes I made investments. Sometimes I was just working as my investment for the the home run or the grand slam. And so I wanted to have that stake in the outcome.
Yeah, I think that's great. And that's really the entrepreneurial mind, is that not thinking of yourself as an employee, but really as a partner.
Exactly.
So we're going to talk a little bit about climate change in this as well. That's that science piece of it. But how did you get involved in this? What sparked that passion? Because for me, especially for my age, at 65, climate change was not forefront in people's minds when I was young. And even today, there's still some uphill battles for people. But what just pushed you to say, this is what I want to have my focus be on?
Well, so that happened within our company, actually. And there was a particular moment in time that I can identify. And what that and it helps to understand a little bit about what we do. So if you don't mind, I'll back up a
That
little
would be
bit.
awesome.
Okay, so Reactive Surfaces is a company that specializes in innovating in the paint and coatings industry. And paint and coatings, I always say, is the biggest industry that no one's ever thought of. It's everything around you is coated. So look around you right now in your studio, or your listeners, or whatever room you're in. Obviously, the walls are painted. Things are painted or coated. Coatings are just paint without color. But almost everything, if it's manufactured by the hand of man, has a coating on it at some point. It's manufacturing process. So if you look at your table or your chairs or your desk or your shirt or your eyeglasses or your computer screen, this Coke can, everything has a coating on it. And so that's the world that we specialize in. And what we've done, so generally there are two things that coatings do. They protect an underlying surface, or they decorate it with a color. That's what people have an expectation of. So we've added a new dimension, not a new dimension. There are other companies that do it, but in a different way. And that's functionality. So what we do is add functionality to paints and coatings. And then we can put that paint or coating that does something for us on a surface and make use of that surface area. Example. And we pull from nature. That's what makes us different from other coatings companies that have developed maybe antimicrobial coatings. You might have heard, like, especially during COVID, you heard a lot about surfaces, and they wanted to get a coating for that surface that's antimicrobial. We've done that too, but we always pull from nature rather than using harmful chemicals. Everything that we do is based in biomolecules, usually like enzymes or peptides. So example of something that we do would be a peptide that we entrain into a coating that has it's from nature, it's around us all the time, it's naturally occurring, so it's completely safe. In fact, my husband, who's the innovator, will step into a meeting and actually take a spoonful of it and eat it in front of people. So everything is safe enough to that you would ingest, but entrained into a coating system, and then as long as the coating is on a surface, it will continually do what it's asked to do, and that which it does in nature. So you asked about the moment so that's what we've been doing for a couple decades in our paint companies, innovating, using these peptides and enzymes that do something, that function in a coating system to do something for their environment. When in October of 2018, there was a report that came out by the United Nations International Panel on Climate Change. It's called the IPCC. The IPCC is the most relevant authority on climate change that exists. It's made up of probably 3,500 scientists nationwide, climate change scientists and other scientists that all agree on what's going on with climate change. So if you want the foremost authority, it's the UN IPCC. They came out with a report in 2018. And that report was so devastating. It knocked my husband and I we were just like comatose for about a week. I mean, he couldn't get off the couch. He was just like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to protect us from this. And so then when he finally got off the couch about a week later, he said, I have something that I've been thinking about for a long time. And I think we need to take this to the lab, take this to our technical team at our labs, and we need to devote some time and see if we can develop it. And that is putting algae, not a biomolecule, but actual single cell bacteria and algae into a coating system. And same thing, ask it to do what it does in nature. Well, what it does in nature is photosynthesize by pulling down CO2. Right. With the help of sunlight and water and stuff in the atmosphere, and releases oxygen and glucose, but it pulls down CO2. So we decided to put that into a paint system, a coating system, and ask that to do what it does. And about a year later, we had it. And so that was the moment that I became obsessed with climate change. In fact, I haven't picked up a novel since 2018. Because any opportunity I have to read anything, or watch anything, it's always about climate change. So I'm kind of obsessed. And also, we're the adults in the room now. I have kids, like you said, and grandkids, and you do too. And I can't leave a world that, leave them with a world that's going to fall apart. And so it's time to step up and take sides. And as far as the people that don't believe in it, I don't have those arguments. I don't worry about people like that. It's so far and few between the people that don't buy into very, very well established scientific research now.
So what are we painting or coating with this new invention?
Yeah, great question. So when people, again, when they think about paint, they think about naturally putting it on walls. Now, that's probably a use that we will eventually get to. But given the urgency of the situation, and how big it is, we feel that the highest and best use for the paint right now is to maximize surface area in like a facility. So if you can imagine, we've created a modular system. So I'll describe to your listeners and your viewers what that would look like. Is imagine a 1 cubic meter module, just a plastic box, okay? And then we take a surface area, we take some surface area. We're using a plastic mesh at this time. It has a lot of surface area within it. And we coat that with this green algae paint. The algae is growing and multiplying within the paint and creating biomass by capturing the CO2. If we coated a whole bunch of those sheets and put a whole bunch of those sheets sitting in 1 cubic meter box, let's say we had 40 meters squared, then 1 cubic meter, then we have all that much surface area doing the work in a smaller space. And so the idea is to take a whole bunch of those modules. They could either be they're solar powered, or in other cases, we can use energy in them to help like large emitters pull down their CO2, or it could be like something sitting in a field and pulling it down ambient CO2. But basically, we create a little environment that's good for the painted algae sheets to thrive, and they just do the work.
Oh, cool. So would you have that in start in urban areas where there isn't as many trees or natural ways to create the CO2?
Well, there's several parts to that question, but there's CO2 is a gas, so wherever you pull it down, it's going to pull it down. It doesn't matter whether you're on the other side of the world, it's going to do the same thing, or have the same impact. But the system is pretty flexible. So since it's a modular system, and then we can see it, and we haven't gotten to this point of development, but we can see where this could be used in your backyard. You could stack some of these things to take care of your carbon footprint.
Yeah.
And there are things that go along with that. The sheets would have to be replaced, and we imagine it would be something kind of like your city services, where they come and they pick up your recycle or something like that. They might have a service that would come and pick up these sheets and substitute them with your new sheets. And then those sheets would get harvested, and we would take that biomass and do something to permanently sequester it, which is a different topic. We don't have to get into it, but we.
But that did come in my mind.
Yeah, you don't leave it in the paint. The paint, the CO2 becomes fixed in the paint, but until we decide to harvest it. And what that does, that's better than nature, is that, for instance, algae in nature is going to pull down CO2, but it's also going to release CO2. And nature has a very good balance for that. But we don't want it releasing. So in a paint, we can hold on to it until we're ready to do something with it. And then we have a harvesting process and a permanent sequestration process called biochar. So that's the end of it's a cradle to grave system. And so I mentioned, there could be, we call those personal offset devices. There could be an individual pod that you build modules in your backyard and just have a personal offset device, all the way up to a giant facility out on, a few miles worth. Like if you've seen any of those, losing the word, windmills.
That's where I was going to. Yeah.
Yeah, have you seen
In
the windmills like
Kansas.
in the upper
In
Texas?
Kansas and different, yeah.
I mean, West Texas, they have huge farms.
Yeah.
Well, those might be farms of carbon capture coatings in modules that could capture directly from the ambient air. Or, like I mentioned, we could nestle up to a large emitter, an industrial process or something that has a lot of CO2 coming out, and we can pipe that CO2 into our system. And guess what? Algae loves CO2. So the more CO2 we put in it, the better our system works and the faster it works. And so we can be a mitigation strategy or a direct air capture strategy.
Very cool. Very cool. So as you are talking to people, government officials and things, what is their reaction? We talked about the struggles that women have in business. Now you're a woman talking about something that people sometimes don't want to hear. So how is that moving along as the climate changed?
It's challenging. It's definitely challenging with new innovation, okay? Because no one's ever done this in paint before. So we're, pioneers. Sometimes pioneers get arrows in the back, right?
Yeah.
We're used to it. Ain't the first time. But we talk to a lot of big companies, and it can be frustrating. For instance, like I was talking to the sustainability officer. This was a couple years ago when it was early on in our development of this technology. But I was taking of one of the biggest companies in the world. You would know it if you guessed it. I won't call them out yet, but I will later. And they wanted to, this particular person, I think, wanted to stick with whatever they were investing in, which it's called mangrove swamps, a natural carbon removal system. And but his only question for us was, what's the ROI? And it was a little offensive because, I don't know, the ROI is, how about we don't all die?
Yeah, that's right. I was just thinking, I have a place to live,
So eventually we've decided that we're gonna set up a philanthropic fund on the side when we start bringing in, like when we start pulling down gigatons, and we're bringing in that kind of money, and it's going to be called the ROI, but it's going to be philanthropic.
I love it. Oh my goodness. So what
it is hard to convince certain people to take action on new innovation. That's the biggest, even if they think, and usually they think, oh yeah, that's the greatest, that's awesome that you're doing it. Call us when it's completely done, when it's on a shelf, wrapped up in a box with a bow on it, then call us, and so it can be kind of hard because our lane is, frankly, we're in the paint and coatings lane. We're not in the lane of building huge facilities. That's not what we do. We need big partners to do that part. We paint.
Yeah, okay? That's what I was just thinking. That you need to get those platforms. And are you in discussions maybe with those people that could be large investors that have similar understanding, vision, and could the UN be a good partner to help link you up with people?
Yeah, so we're doing a lot of investor discussions, and we are talking to some large emitters. There are a lot of companies, big companies, and frankly, I think their shareholders are demanding it, that they do something about their emissions. For instance, in the coal business, in the steel industry, they're very dirty. And the fact is with a carbon removal technology like this, it's not so much like you can't emit, it's just you got to clean up your mess. Okay, it's time for us to build that into our business models. Okay, cleaning up is just what you got to do. It's part of the business. And so I think they're starting to grasp that. They really want to show the world that they have a sustainability, mindset. And so we are hearing from big companies. And we're hearing from big paint companies and we deal with paint companies all the time, because, like a lot of just in all of our platform technologies, they're asking us, can you develop this paint for us or that? So we have connections into the paint industry, a lot of them. So the paint industry is definitely getting interested and involved. But I'll tell you, on an international scale, what's interesting that I learned, because we did some presentations that got some Eastern European countries interested. And so Bulgaria is a country that's very interested in starting a pilot project and delivering that to the EU, because they are a part of the EU, and they're just taking a very big stand in a lot of these European countries, or in Eastern European countries, and just globally. And what I found out is they're really looking to use American innovation. And so they want the United States to be a leader, and they're looking to the United States. And so I think it's up to our industry and our leadership to take that leading role. And because globally, I think they'll follow. That's what our experience is. I mean, I had people in the embassy telling me that exact thing. We want we want United States innovation. That's what we want.
When you talked about big companies, I'm originally from Pittsburgh. And so PPG is where my girlfriend worked for many, many years. I think she retired from there or is about to. And they would be, to me, a logical partner to have because of their size and their global. I
think they might be the biggest, if not the second biggest, along with Sherwin-Williams.
Yeah.
Yes. And they, I've told these paint companies, I've said, look, what if the best solution to climate change arose within the paint and coatings industry and you did nothing?
I know. That's what I'm thinking too.
And I think that the person that I said that to, and again, I won't call them out yet, but maybe you'll have me on again in a year or so, and then we'll name names, but was a little emasculated by that, and we didn't hear.
Well, maybe you could. I retired from UPS, and we have our brown trucks, and we do a lot of stuff with carbon footprint and all that kind of stuff. And so maybe we can get our Pullman brown paint to be that, and we can drive around collecting.
That's interesting. I never thought about it for vehicles. But
just you should talk to Carol Tomei. Tell her Vicki sent you. All right, so it's time now for a rapid fire. We have just zoomed by here. There's so much content, and I definitely will have to have you come back and talk some more. But what are some things that we can right now, just the normal Vicki and Beth do to reduce our carbon footprint?
Yeah, good question. I think people are really interested in doing something and being a part of the solution. So, and then here's where the negative part comes in. There are things to do. Certainly drive an electric car, you're not adding to the problem. The problem is if everyone in the whole world drove an electric car, we'd still be in a bind. Okay, unfortunately. And so it's not going to actually take care of it. Hopefully, if we can get like these individual personal offset devices and it becomes a global way of handling things, solar panels became, they grew a lot in the last 15, 20 years, right? And so you see them all over. I mean, maybe we can do that. We just don't have that much time. And that's what's really freaking everybody out. And so, excuse me. What I tell people, and I used to do this, I used to teach things like this as advocacy in classrooms, is really one of the best things that you can do is go to your lawmaker and make your desires known, because they need to know that people care about this. And when you make a call to your lawmaker, and you tell them that you care about, implementing more carbon removal technologies, a lot of people don't know this. First of all, you don't have to say it in any way. You don't have to be good at it or anything. There's a person on the other end of the phone that is taking a tally down, and they have to note that someone cares about that in that district. And if that person cares about it, there's a formula that they put to that means that so many other people care about it that they're not hearing from. And so that actually can make a difference, you know. And so writing letters, I mean, that's what I think, because they need to take real giant action in this case. I mean, we could pass up a point of no return. We're losing coral reefs already in the ocean. We're losing, species large. We're gonna, by 2100, we might lose some of the largest species on Earth of animals. And there's really dim news for places like Miami and New Orleans because of global warming. So anyway, I think we need to take action, and take action now. Don't sit on it. Call them up and tell them they work for us.
So what are some things that we should know about? You talked about the coral reefs. I think mangroves also are impacted too. They plant them, but I don't know. I know when I went to the islands recently that there was a whole discussion about how that's being impacted by the climate change. So
I bet it is. It's one of the natural climate change solutions. But yeah, I'm sure they are.
So what is being done in our schools though to educate our kids? Because I think if it's not in the curriculum, most likely, to talk as much or as current about it. There could be information, but not current. But how could having that generation that's going to own the mess that we made be informed, help to maybe drive change as well?
Well, I think that lawmakers and big companies who really can have an impact need to listen to the younger generation. They do care. They grew up caring about it. I apologize to them all the time. Like, sorry, in the 70s, we should have noticed. And there were people that knew and didn't do anything about it. And they were contemporaries of ours, and so it was, we overlooked it. And we thought it would just kind of go away. And I think people also think that there's a lot going on that's going to make a difference. There are companies, like I said, that are trying to mitigate or to lower their emissions. But when it comes to carbon removal systems, that would not be in relationship to, evening out an emission, but actually just a net negative situation where you're carbon dioxide out. We've got 40 gigatons or 40 billion tons of CO2 annually going into the atmosphere from human driven things. And so far, the best or the most forward technology, I won't say it's a good technology, it's a sorbent carbon removal technology, is only pulling down 4,000 tons. We are so far off the mark. And I think they are teaching it a lot in schools, and I think that the younger generation cares about it, but it's really, I think we need to target in on carbon removal technology, and not just ours. Ours will be able to do a certain good amount. We'll be able to scale up to the gigaton level, but there's got to be a move towards carbon removal, or we're just not going to achieve it in time. And they talk about a point of no return in which we won't be able to turn back the climate. We'll lose certain things. As the ice shelf melts in the Arctic, for instance, it's going to expose viruses and bacteria that have been in ice for millions of years. I mean, it's going to change the way that things are a lot in ways that we never thought. Civil unrest and all sorts of stuff. I hate to be the doomsday person, because I really do think there are solutions, but we have to get out there and promote these solutions.
Awesome. All right. So if you could have given or had any advice, let's say this a different way. what advice would you have liked to have had when you were 20, just going into this business world, lawyer, whatnot? What advice do you wish you would have had?
Yeah, I wouldn't have taken any advice at that age because
No, we never did.
not even from myself, but what I would probably have said, make sure no matter what, that you have passion for what you do, that there's meaning behind what you do. And because that'll keep you interested in it, and and not just tired of the work and just working for the money. It's so passion and meaning and a good life work balance will keep you going until you're like me in your 50s, and you're probably going to work, and I'm probably going to work for another 20 years. I mean, otherwise you can get kind of burnt out.
Yeah. Awesome. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and this has the information. So those that are watching can take a screenshot. If you were just listening in, then you will need to grab that pencil and paper so that you can copy down the information that I will give for the website. But if you don't, then just know that you can go to my YouTube channel or my website, and all of this information will be in my show notes. All right. So the information is www.reactivesurfaces.com. That's reactivesurfaces.com. reactivesurfaces.com/technology. Again, that's https reactivesurfaces.com technology. You can find Beth on LinkedIn. Just search her name, Beth McDaniel. And I'm going to let you talk about your call to action. So the bit of information that we have here on the site and how they can get do more.
Yeah. No, people might want to know more about what we're doing and where we're going. We intend for this to be a carbon offset. So we're in that process. So there is an opportunity in the future for people to buy carbon offsets that would be using this technology. So yeah, keep an eye on us. Feel free to reach out on LinkedIn, and if there's any questions about it, and I'll be happy to answer. I like talking about climate change.
So when they go to envirotechaccelerator.org, is that just informational, or say, are you at the point in your business that people can get those individual pods that you talked about in their for their personal use, or is it not at that point yet, and that's what we need to be watching out for?
That's what you need to be watching out for, but it's not that far behind. We're building our first pilot facility in California. We're in the midst of doing that. It's modular. It's these stacked modules like I described to you. And so, yeah, be on the lookout for it in the next year or so.
Awesome. Okay, again, the website is reactivesurfaces.com/technology, and LinkedIn is Beth McDaniel. Well, it's been so great to have, really, I think, as you mentioned, just a topic that needs to be discussed and brought to the forefront, and it is up to us to make a difference. And so I loved your suggestions of writing letters. Remember that one voice can make a difference.
It's true.
So thanks so much for being my guest today, and I encourage everyone again to go to Beth's website, reactivesurfaces.com/technology. And as I always say, life is a journey, and it's up to you to enjoy the ride. This is Vicki Nettling signing off.
Thank you for tuning into the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Nettling, where we share impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Remember to visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast.